Welcome to Unapologetically Anxious Me, Confessions of a Haitian Girl, the podcast where I blend life, love, sex, and relationships with mental health, social issues, and history, all from my very unabashed perspective. Join me, Joe Ciceron, as we unravel the power of vulnerability, celebrate storytelling, our history, and connect with incredible individuals who have tales to share. Let's dive deep into our essence and the narratives that mold us, because in this space, we believe in the magic of authenticity and the beauty of being unapologetically you. Welcome back to another episode of Unapologetically Anxious Me, Confessions of a Haitian Girl. I'm your host, Joe, and I am beyond excited because we have a one-of-a-kind powerhouse guest today. Now, if you're Haitian, if you love food, or if you've ever even remotely tapped into entrepreneurship, you probably already know the name Nadege Fleurimond. This woman is a powerhouse, a chef, an author, a business strategist, and a cultural curator and ambassador who has taken Haitian cuisine to places many could only dream of. I mean, she's catered at the White House, y'all. We're amongst royalty. She's built an empire by blending our rich Haitian flavors with global influences. And on top of all that, she's dedicated to helping other entrepreneurs, especially women, elevate their own businesses and legacies. But beyond the success, beyond the accolades, there's the human side of Nadege, the one who, like so many of us, has had to navigate the challenges of entrepreneurship, identity, and mental health while carrying the weight of being a trailblazer. Today, we're diving into all of that, her wins, her lessons, how she stayed grounded, and of course, some fun. So sit back, grab yourself a plate of your most delicious food, and help me welcome the incredible Nadege Fleurimond. Sound effect.
You know what? Can you please send me that intro? I think that's my new bio.
Oh, absolutely.
That was amazing. I'm like, who's she talking about? I guess that's what
I don't have all of your titles on here because there was so many.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Joe. I'm so excited to be on.
Thank you so much for being here. I have seen you online and have been watching you probably for like well over a decade now. And I mean, I'm always hearing your name in different places, and it's never in the same place twice, which is crazy. So I just want to hear so much. I have so many questions for you, but I'm just excited to really dig in and just get to know you, because I think that you are truly one in a million. It's just someone that Haitian women and Haitian people in general really can look up to and are inspired by, and I just can't wait to hear your story. So let's just start with your journey. When did you first realize food was more than just sustenance for you, but a passion and a career?
Oh, wow. I mean, I always tell people food was completely accidental. You know, I'm a Haitian girl. I'm an immigrant, and I'm Haitian on top, raised by a single father in Brooklyn in the 90s. Mm-hmm. So I was supposed to be a doctor, a lawyer, engineer. And I guess everything else after that, is a failure, right? So there were no other options. So I went to school. I went to Columbia undergrad. I studied political science with intentions of going to law school.
Okay.
Like a good Haitian girl, But I think while in school, that was my first time being away from home. That was my first time, even though Columbia is only a train ride away from Brooklyn, where I grew up. It was also the first time I was in such a very white environment, very non-Haitian. I mean, Brooklyn is like a melting pot. Especially in the 90s, it was West Indian. If you're not Haitian, you're Jamaican, you're Trinidadian. Yeah. I went to a school called Brooklyn Tech. It was a melting pot as well. But Columbia, I felt my Haitianness, and I was very homesick. Also having issues at home because my dad, this was my first time being away. So the mental stress was definitely a lot for me because he didn't want me to go away to school. That was a trick that happened. I'll tell you about that another time. I got to stay on campus, but he took it very hard because it was just the two of us, and he just wasn't used to it. So food became my comfort, like the same thing that happened during the pandemic, right? Everybody started cooking. You're missing home, you're feeling sad, so I started cooking. But the one thing about cooking is you share. You're on campus, you're building this new community, so I'm sharing my food with my friends and new community, and they're like, oh my God, this is so cool, where's it from? And I'm like, 80, and they're like, oh my God, I'm 80. And then they start telling me all these negative things they've heard. And then whenever, but then as they were eating the food, though, the conversations would switch. It would be like, oh my God, we have something similar where I'm from Bangladesh, we have this. I'm from this part, we eat this. Oh my God, I've never had this before. So I realized whenever food was present, the conversation around Haiti was different. It wasn't just the negativity. People wanted to dig more. They wanted to understand. They wanted to know more. So I was like, this is a nice way to educate people about food. I didn't think of it as a career at the time because it was just like, I'll cook on campus for my friends. I was part of the Haitian Girl Association. We'll cook as fundraisers. People would order, but then people just love my food. I grew up cooking. My dad is a phenomenal cook. So cooking was, since I was 8, I've been cooking these like big grown people meals, you know?
Yeah.
So cooking was nothing for me, but then student associations would be like, oh, who's the new caterer? The food is so good whenever I cook for student clubs. So then they started hiring me. So it was a side hustle that I did not anticipate was going to turn into like, students would start asking me to cater for student groups. Then administrators would be like, who's the new caterer? Then I started catering for administrators off campus. They're like, oh, it's my mom's birthday. The food we had at such and such event was so good, you cater. And I was like, I guess I do.
Wow.
In my head, it was just a way to make extra money beyond my work study money.
That's so cool. That's amazing because you went to Columbia University and you majored in political science. Political science.
Yes.
And then you ended up having a whole like career in food and dining. And so that just makes me curious, like, because I know when I told my parents that I wanted to major in journalism, they looked at me like I had just announced I wanted to be a stripper for a living.
Might as well. They're one and the same, right? They're like, what does that mean? What job is that? Like, it's not
right. And then my dad's like, "Oh, you're gonna get murdered for telling your opinion." Like that's what happens.
True. Exactly.
You know?
We also have to know where we're from.
Mm-hmm. And so I'm thinking, like, how did you go from that? How did that work with Daddy?
Oh, not at all. I remember, like, even when I graduated, because I didn't come to terms, I just always considered catering a side hustle. So I graduated in 2003. I'm in political science. I was like, oh, I won't go to law school. Let me study first and then work. So I working for an elected official. And then catering though. And then I was like, after about a year of doing that, I was like, I think I want to cater full time. My dad is like, Kigri Masa. Like, what is this like foolery, right? And I was like,
well, you're not Ivy League.
Yeah, and that's exactly what he said. So he started trying. First thing was guilt. Like, me sacrifice toute vie. Like, I sacrificed everything for you. And then this is what you do. You decide to be a machin manger. That's always what. Till this day, he calls me that. But now he does it as a joke. But a machin manger for, the viewers, it's more like, it's not just like you're a chef. That's not what he's saying. It's more like you're a street vendor on the side of the road selling food to people like a street vendor. So he didn't take it too well. He just thought it was like, what are you talking about? Like, why would you do this? And like you mentioned, your parents and your dad, it's the same thing because they come from a very limited place, right? Where there's certain careers that guarantees financial freedom, that guarantees security. So journalism to him translates to you're talking about politics, you're talking about people, they're gonna kill you, and that's what they
pretty much.
So my daddy was the same thing. Like they don't know people that's was able to set a path for themselves and was successful. The only person they knew that had the big house, that had the nice car, were the doctors, the lawyers, and the engineers. So that's why our parents want those things for us. So I had to learn that though, but it took a lot of, like I tell people, we're more privileged, at least I am. Not everybody has the same experience, but I always considered myself more privileged than my father and my mother, right? Because they didn't even have the time or the energy to process, like, why is he saying this to me? Because like I have to understand, like, my dad don't hate me, like it's not because he wants me to be miserable. So I had to really disconnect, like, take apart where he was coming from and also what I wanted for myself. So that took years of, and I say self-therapy because I never went to therapy formally, but it was always like processing and just being a Sagittarius. I'm analytical by nature anyway. So I was just like, why is this happening? Why is this happening? So once I was able to understand, I finally was able to forgive him for like those thoughts, because it's like, oh, it's not against me. It's more kind of like where he's from.
Totally get that. So Haitian cuisine is rich and full of history. How do you balance honoring tradition while also bringing innovation?
Oh, great question. Because in terms of like, Haitian people, I say, are makuts. Like makut is like, like they're Nazis. They're like, the soup Nazi from South Park. Like it's like it needs to be this way, right? When it comes to food. So I realized too that us as Haitian people, we really want food the way our mothers made it, our grandmothers made it. But what we also are learning being Haitian Americans or growing up here, not everybody cooks the same.
Yeah.
I'm also realizing Haitians are learning that. And that's why I wrote my book that's behind me, Haiti Uncovered, A Regional Adventure into the Art of Haitian Cuisine. It was kind of like, oh, if you're from Cap Haitian, you're not putting coconut milk in your sauce pois. And I had to understand that because I couldn't imagine sauce pois without coconut milk.
Yeah.
I'm from the South. Like, that's what we do. Like,
yeah.
we put coconut milk in everything. So there's that part you have to honor. But I also am somebody who gets to touch other spaces as well. So I always want to take a piece of Haiti with me. Like we're one of the preferred caterers at the New York Times buildings, event venue, the Time Center. So we're catering all these big corporate events.
Okay, shit, girl.
So we're doing conferences for 300-400 people all day long, multiple days at a time. So I'm always trying to sneak a piece of Haiti. So I think I've come to terms with myself. Like I think whenever I'm outside of the Haitian community, I try to bring them that authenticity because I'm like, you don't know anything about Haitian food. So I may do some fusion things, but I also think it's important to give them what I consider, what I grew up as authentic Haitian food, because if it's the first piece of Haitian thing somebody who's not Haitian is going to have, I want you to understand it. But I also think it's important for us as Haitians, especially chefs, that we expand the cuisine as well. And I see chefs are doing that online a lot. I'm doing it with my restaurant Banan, like where we're doing these plantain sandwiches, plantain pizza with griot and tasso. It's also important for us to, like I said, we don't eat the same like our parents used to, where it's like dili cole, sauce pois, and that's all we're eating. Right. No, people have different experiences. So I may have a great Italian meal and I want to do a linguine with jonjon. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I may want to do a risotto with pitimi instead of rice because I love, the cooking process of that. So I think within our community, our jobs as culinarians is to expand it for our community to know ingredients. It's the flavors, the ingredients, the processes that makes a cuisine, not the very specific dish. And then when we're outside the community now, we want those people to understand, like, this is a griot. Like, this is what Jojo is. This is the Ecole. So for them to be like, oh, let me go learn more about Haitian food.
Wow. I mean, you wear so many different hats. I mean, you're just a full walking business. And you have your hands in pretty much everything, it feels like. But with all these titles, what 3 words would you describe yourself as?
I mean, I hate it too, but I just call myself a culinary entrepreneur at this point because I do think food is always at the center of everything I do. Yes, I write cookbooks, but like I said, I have always taken like my passions and the different things I'm passionate about and combining them. I love reading, I love writing. So when I wrote my cookbooks, all my books, Haiti Uncovered or Taste of Solitude, yes, there's recipes, but it's always within the context of stories. That's why when I wrote the book, my Haiti Uncovered book, I traveled to Haiti because I didn't want to just sit here in my Brooklyn apartment and write recipes. I wanted to tell Haiti's story because my whole thing is, if this is the first time you're picking up a book about Haiti, and over the last 10 years, people have ordered this book all over. It's at libraries in different states, in California, at universities, and it's a self-published book, but people is like, oh my God, Harvard was like, well, they keep asking me for this book. Can we get a copy to put in our library? So they ordered it. So I have to understand that may be somebody's very first interaction with Haiti. So ever since college, when I said that, because that was the first time I experienced Haiti outside of my comfort zone, was going to school, I realized the narrative they have is very specific. So I was like, I want to participate in whatever that narrative is going to be. And for me to do that, I have to be intentional. So I decided that food was the tool that I was going to do, but I think we can do it with whatever it is we're passionate about. So that's why I describe myself as a culinary entrepreneur, because whether it's writing, whether it's speaking, whether it's catering, whether it's my restaurant, it's always about Haiti's story that I want to put at the forefront. And then we do these culinary tours too, like where we take people to Haiti on top of it. So it's all Haiti at the end of it all.
I love that. I love that even where you started off with what, I mean, a lot of people probably go into political science and you had like a very traditional path set out for yourself. You're like, I'd be a lawyer, you know, and food just kind of took on this whole new identity of its own. I love the fact that you never like tied yourself down to like one box. Or why is that so important for people to do, especially those who are going into entrepreneurship?
No, I think it's very important. Like the one thing I've always told people is I lean into things. Like I'm very big on my intuition. So, and I always tell people, I don't know what I'm doing. Like I didn't set out for a culinary career. You could have asked me 20 years ago and it's been 20 years. Like up until maybe about 10 years ago, you could have asked me like, what is it you're going to be? I'm like, I don't know yet. Like, even though I've already been running.
I'm still growing up, guys.
I'm still growing up, right? I'm like 43 years old, like still growing up. But I think for me, it's because I never set out to do something. I think what I've always said is I want to be of service. That was important to me. But I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know if that meant I was a teacher. I didn't know if that meant like I was going to go into law, whatever it was. So when opportunities would open up, I would just be like, oh, how does this feel right now? And I was big about having those conversations with myself. And I was like, is there some, like I remember my friend in 2014 or 2015 was like, can you manage my bar for me? We're not making any money. And I was like, I don't know anything about managing a bar. He's like, yeah, but you're brilliant. I was like, no, I'm not. He's like, yeah, we're only making like, $5,000 a month and it's a bar. And I was like, I don't know. But I was like, okay, why not? But I learned so much from that experience because within like 4 or 5 months, I had him making $50,000 a month.
Nice.
But I realized that it's because I was like, oh, let me lean into this opportunity. Is there something to gain from this? So I think as entrepreneurs set out, don't be so stuck in the packaging. I always tell people, don't be so stuck in what you think. Like if you're good at cooking, that may not mean that you're going to be a chef at a restaurant. You know what I mean? Maybe you're good at you're just simply going to be a content creator making boku dollars on the internet just cooking in your house.
Right.
Maybe that means you're going to be teaching in a school. Maybe it means you're a traveling chef. There's so many ways we can manifest the dream. So I think, but for that to happen, you have to allow yourself to be open to opportunities.
I love that. Now, obviously, I think a lot of people, there is some level of like, privilege in being able to just like say like, I could do this or I want to chop and do that. Not everybody has that like ability. So has fear played a role in your career and like, how do you handle that? Do you still experience that now?
Oh my God, fear is the driver.
You're like, oh, I stay scared.
I stay scared, and I think that's what it is. I'm always scared because, especially now more than ever, I'm handling these, I may be catering an event and it's a 6-figure contract, and for somebody that's no longer like I'm bringing a tray of food to an event. It's like this person's whole conference is on my back.
Wow, yeah.
So that is very, very, a lot of pressure. But going like in terms of, I want to use the word privilege to be able to do that. I think for me, I tell entrepreneurs this all the time. It's hard. Mm-hmm. It's hard as hell. And I've thought of quitting so many times. The recession of 2008, 2009, 2016. I've quit in my head mentally. I never quit physically because I did decide to be a full-time entrepreneur in 2004. That means I've been down to $0 in my bank account. That means I've been at negative 30,000. I've been at negative 50,000. Wow. But I've always but if the method to my madness has always been, and then you have a father who's like, you see, you're wasting my Ivy League his Ivy League education. I'm wasting his Ivy League degree. You could be getting a job and you're saying that to yourself. So you're doubting, you're like, oh my God, like, why am I doing this? But my whole thing is, if I can have 5 clients, I can have 50. That's always been my the method to my madness. So I'm like, what am I doing? And just keep building on those good things. I remember somebody stepping into a room. It was at a college. I had set up a table and then it was just a setup. And they text me, they're like, are you on catering? I was like, yeah. They're like, oh, as soon as I saw the table, I knew it was you. And I was like, You know what I mean? So I was like, it's important you leave your signature, your mark, or what you do. Like even when I was home during COVID, the reason I have that little Fleurimond kitchen, because I was home cooking and it was just because we thought we were all gonna die, so I was just bored and stressed. But I was like, oh, let me make a little backdrop. Let me get some plants. You know what I mean? So for me, it's always kind of like, how do I do whatever it is I'm doing the very best that I can? You know, so I would just tell people, like, the fear is not the problem. It's just pushing past it and just like, again, as long as you know you have that higher purpose of why you're doing what you're doing. And people always say, like, luckily I'm not motivated by money. Now I'm motivated by money, funny enough, because I'm like, oh, money is nice. I didn't have that when I was younger, because I'm not a person who wants much, and I still don't, because if I don't have $1, I'm fine. I'll be fine. I'm Haitian. Like, we live. I'll eat my moulin sauce wine, call it a day. I'll start over. But whatever is that purpose, because it could be money. People are like, it's not good to have money as a driver. I'm like, you can, you know. Me, I just always wanted to do whatever it is that I'm doing the very best way possible. But if money is your driver, that's okay. But I'm sure it's not money. I'm sure it's because that money will be able to allow you something else that you want. Whether it's, you know, like the ability to pay your bills without worry, whether it's the freedom of time. Like, I love that I can sit here and have a conversation with you at noon. I tell people the main reason I went into entrepreneurship, because I had a job for 1 year after college, and I hated getting up early. I hated it. But guess what? When I decided to be an entrepreneur full time, getting up at 8 was stressful. I get up at 5, 6 o'clock now. Like, it's like, because I realize if I don't get up, my brain is sharper in the morning. That's when I need to do what I need to do. I won't eat. So then I had a reason, and there was something that moved me. So now it's not even a problem. Like, my friends are always like, oh, you're such a early morning person and so chipper. I was like, entrepreneurship made me that way, because I realized I got my best results in the morning, and I want my business to be successful, so I got to do this. So, but it was all a learning process.
Right. And I think that says a lot, because when you said when you just had like regular 9-to-5 type of job, it was just like you dreaded waking up. And I find that, like, especially since I made this decision when I turned 30. I'm 37 now, but like, I was just like, I can't do it anymore. I am done with the corporate world. I am done with all that. And I was just like, I really want to work on my own dreams. And when I started doing the things that I love, I had no problem waking up at the crack of dawn if I had to. I had no problem like freaking out and having to do something like last minute or learn a whole bunch of things at once. Like, to me, it's exciting, it's challenging, because it's my thing, it's my baby, you know what I mean? And I think when it's something that you love, when you're happy with what you're doing, like, you make those sacrifices, and it doesn't feel like sacrifices in that way. And I think that's very important for people.
Yeah. A lot of people are always talking about this Mondays, they hate Mondays. I'm like, I don't even know days. Like, if I need to work on a Saturday, I work on a Saturday. If I need to work on a Monday, on a Tuesday or Wednesday, I'm good. Like I said, I just got back from Haiti on our culinary tour, and I've had the between now and, like, you know, the next 3 weeks, I'm pretty free. So I'm like, oh, I'm focusing on administrative work, but I'm probably going to have like the most brutal 3 months ahead, because I'm going to be getting up at 4 a.m. because we have to set up breakfast for events at 7. And then we're done again at like 7, 8 p.m. And we're doing this 3-4 days back to back. But I'll do it again and again and again, and it doesn't bother me. Of course, you get tired. It doesn't mean, like, when you love what you're doing, it doesn't mean you don't get tired or you don't get annoyed. But it's just like, it's still not like this thing that weighs you down, like getting up to go to a job that you absolutely don't like. And if you love your job, you don't feel that too. I know people who love their job, and that's another thing. Not everybody's meant to be an entrepreneur, like, and that's also okay, right? Because the internet pushes this narrative, like, you know, you start a business, 6 months later, you just get rich. People saw online, and then you're rich, it goes viral, and everybody's buying your products. No, it does not work that way. I'm also very blessed. I started my business pre-social media boom, because it really showed me the power of, like, foundation building, right? Because I think you do need to develop relationships. You do need to meet people face to face, because even now, like, we're functioning in bigger spaces. We're talking about like contracts, government contracts, airport contracts. You're doing all these things. Most of those things, you won't even know about them if you're not attending real live events. Exactly. Like in meeting people, being in the rooms where they're being talked around. So, but I think the social media can have us fooled thinking like we just sit behind our computers and make 3 posts and then our business works. It does not work that way.
Very true. Now, your book, Haiti Uncovered, is just such a beautiful tribute to our culture. What was the emotional experience like, just creating that and putting that together?
Oh, wow. Like I said, when I first started thought about that book, it came from my brother who was born here. And he said to me, he was like, what happens when all the old people are dead? Who's going to cook our food? I'm like, oh no.
That's dark.
Very dark. Like a 10, 12-year-old is saying this to, and I was like, you know what? That's a really good question, though, because it really made me start thinking about legacy and heritage and continuity. Mm-hmm. So that in itself had me emotionally charged. Like, oh my God, we do need to, like I said, the internet wasn't as big as it is now, like where food was being shared all over the place like this. So it really had me like, oh, I do need to kind of like document and canonize some of these things. And I was like, I know food within the perspective of me and my dad, my upbringing here in Brooklyn. Wouldn't it be so? I need to document this. And then I was like, I got to go to Haiti. Everybody's like, why you need to go to Haiti? Go to Church Avenue in Brooklyn or just call an auntie and get some recipes. I was like, no, because this is also an opportunity for me to learn more about the food and then also for me to learn more about Haiti. So I started calling different friends. Oh, I need to go to Oka. I need to go to Okai. I need to go to Jacqueline. I need to go to La Folie Bete. And I started just having friends and different people that I knew travel with me. And they're like, okay, Nadege, whatever crazy idea. She's always has an idea. We know it's going to be great. And luckily I have those kind of friends. But that was my first time. I had traveled to Haiti since I left, but that was my first time really seeing Haiti and exploring Haiti. The good, the bad, and the ugly, right? Because when you're a kid, you hear certain things, but you don't really experience it. You're happy. No matter what, you're good. Like, we're broke. I didn't know, because I was just like happy with my cousins and my friends. And then, and even the people, when you have money, you don't even know there's danger, there's issues, political things. You're not experiencing that. So that was my first time really traveling Haiti with an adult. And I was just like, oh, wow. So the good, the bad, and the ugly, I got to experience it like with my full knowledge and cognizant mind. And I was like, oh, this is a hard place in the sense of like, the daily struggles, the political issues, the economic strife and all of that. But then I was just like, this is a beautiful place. Like, this is an amazing place. I didn't know Haiti was this great in so many, like the humor, the culture, the art, the food, the laughter, like that part gets lost. And I feel like Haitian Americans, Haitians here, we do Haiti such a disservice because we're so focused on that negativity, Mm-hmm. And then I guess that's the thing. Like, I feel like there's two things at play. Sometimes you really just don't know what you have until you're away from it. But also I do think there's a lot of trauma that does exist from people who had to leave for one reason or another. So, but I also feel like there's a generation of Haitians that's their specific mission is to badmouth Haiti. So they couldn't be at their guilt. Maybe this is why I don't go back. This is why I had to leave. So we look for every negative point. Like, I live in Brooklyn and I'm like, no matter how bad people, whatever, think, like, nobody who's from Brooklyn is going to send you every murder that happens in Brooklyn or every time somebody gets robbed. But I feel like as Haitians, that's what we do. We're one of the safest Caribbean islands. We're one of this and that, but you still only, for the most part, we have this culture of only sharing the negativity. That's not to say the place doesn't need a lot of work economically and other ways, but it's just kind of like, why do we only choose to focus on the negativity?
Yeah, I completely understand that. I think that, I don't know, I do think that there's a little bit of a part of our culture where we are a little too obsessed with the morbid. And,
exactly. And other things.
Maybe it is cultural. Maybe it is because we are people who have gone through so much, in comparison to other people. I think that we tend to, really take pride almost in the suffering. And I think so.
I don't know what it is. It's like, it's like suffering porn.
Right. And so I think we do tend to forget that, like, about the beautiful things, especially those of us who grew up in it, and we tend to not appreciate it until we're not around it. And I remember I heard you recently in an interview where you were saying, like, I didn't become Haitian until I was in college.
Yeah.
And I so related to that because for me, it was actually not until I moved to the Midwest in 2015, because I was born in Asbury Park, New Jersey, but I was raised in Florida. And so I was surrounded by a very large Haitian community. I went to a Haitian church growing up that I was pretty much in till I became an adult and went off to college. Like, I was surrounded by so much culture. And I mean, I had friends of all backgrounds, Dominican and Puerto Rican, like all kinds of people around me, all kinds of cultures, And then I moved to Minnesota to a
And you're like, oh.
very small town.
And then you're like, the whole world is not what you know.
Yeah, and even now, like sometimes I think like I became a better cook. I became more proud of my culture. Suddenly things that like I was not doing all that much when I lived in Florida. Now I'm like proud, because I feel like all I see is, this homogenous community around me. And it just made me even more proud of the vivaciousness and the vividness of our culture. And I think that's beautiful in itself. So I really love being able to talk about those things through storytelling, which is really amazing.
Yeah, no, and I think that's the thing. Like I tell people, and like somebody on that same interview was like, oh, I don't like these things about, I was like, it wasn't about us not being proud. It was just more kind of like, this was like, we chose it at that point. I feel like we were always Haitian, but I think we chose it like because it was such a regular everyday aspect of who you are. You never thought about being Haitian as something. But then when you get into these spaces that when you're one of only, or one of, you're less like, oh wow. Like I say, you realize being Haitian is a superpower.
As I totally agree. This platform, I love to really get into mental health because I feel like it's just such a cornerstone of like who we are as people. I think that especially being raised in a culture where like we didn't do that. We don't talk up keep mental health.
Keep mental health.
How you feeling? Literally, and so those are not things that like I grew up talking about. And so I really make it a point to really try to normalize the conversations around mental health, especially when I'm talking to other fellow Haitians and Black people, because I feel like that's just so not a norm for us. And so how do you protect your mental health while you're juggling so much as an entrepreneur?
For me, I think the hardest part was my dad, as I mentioned, because that's the only person I ever felt obligated to, because I do feel he sacrificed so much for me. So there was a time when I felt like I disappointed him in making my decisions that took a real toll on me. So I think it really took kind of like acceptance of kind of like living for myself. And I think that is a hard thing to do as Haitian people, because you learn like, oh, you're living for my tante, auntie, cousin, the person that changed your diapers.
You got their whole lives in the palm of your hand.
Yeah, so it's like everybody else's life before you. So culturally, that's how we're raised. So I had to kind of like, I came to terms with the fact like, no, this is my life. And I had to get comfortable in that. So that was really just a process. It was a lot of introspection, a lot of like acceptance of being okay with my decisions, what I wanted for myself. And if what I wanted for myself happened to be in alignment with someone else, great. But if it wasn't, to the extent that I'm not hurting you specifically, like I'm not coming up to you, I'm sticking you with a knife, it's just you're not happy with my decision. I had to decide like that was your burden to bear, not mine. So I really had to learn to just cope. And how I did that, like I said, is just self-introspection, self-talk, and just really letting myself know that it's okay to make decisions that pleases me, even if someone else was unhappy about it. The pressure to succeed for me really just came from, it's just my own self, really. Like I'm an overachiever. Like I always did well in school. So I always wanted to succeed at whatever it is that I do, no matter what that was. Like I said, I never knew what I wanted to be. I just chose something,
Right.
And then, but whenever I step foot into whatever environment, I always do want to do well, because that's just my own code that I live by. So a lot of the pressure now that exists is really just self-inflicted. But like I've learned to balance that out as well, because I think entrepreneurship teaches you what I call bounceability, because whether you like it or not, you're not always going to win. Actually, you lose more than you win, because you send a proposal and you think everything is great. They're like, oh, client is like, oh yeah, we're ready to move forward or whatever. And then you get an email, oh no, we're going in another direction. We're going to postpone this. So when you've taken enough of that and you realize you don't die, or you apply for a grant, like you think it was the best thing, you had the best pitch, and it doesn't happen. So I think entrepreneurship it's a muscle, just like anything else. It really getting used to rejection, getting used to failure becomes this muscle that you just build up, because you also realize you do get wins. And I always say that, like, God would do this. Like, when you're an entrepreneur, it's like when you're at your wits, and I'm like, I'm getting a job. I can't take this anymore.
I'm done.
I'm getting a job. I'm getting a 9 to 5. I'm too brilliant for this. Why am I suffering like this? And then, you get like a beautiful contract or a beautiful like client, and you're like, oh. But I think that happens because it's good to have that hope dangling in front of you, because it's possible. And I wouldn't be where I am if I didn't have those little moments of hope. But also, like I said, those failures kind of like have taught me, like, you don't die, so you will get over them. And once you realize you get over, there will always be other opportunities.
I love that. I mean, there's just so much pressure, I think, just within our community to really be successful, to be a certain way. And to, of course, like we said, like you're the great Black hope of your family and all your ancestors, and especially as women. And I think one thing I really admire about you is that you don't make apologies, and you haven't stuck to what is expected of you or traditional roles. How do you balance that in your normal life when people expect you to be a mom, expect you to be a wife, expect you to do all these specific things, but you're choosing your own path and being okay with that and staying, grounded in that, despite the criticism that a lot of people in our culture have?
I mean, like I said, I'm luckier than most because I don't have children, right? And or a husband yet, but hey,
yeah.
But I think part of it is, but I've experienced it in other ways, right? Because as a woman, like I said, I show up however I choose. Like, I want to wear my leopard dress. That's what I'm wearing. I remember when I first wanted to do business and I started interacting with different people. They're like, oh, but Nadege, if you're going to be posting, you need to wear certain things. You have to always show up so polished. And I was like, then it's not going to happen. I love dressing up when I feel like it, but I also love just being myself. I love I'm toujours habillé nice, but it's like this idea that you need to wear a suit because you're a business person, or you need to always have your makeup done because you're a business person. That was never me. So I had to kind of do I really have to do this in order to be successful? So I really had to analyze. And I think that's what we oftentimes have to do. We really have to be like, what is it we ultimately want? If what I want, and I learned this only recently too, because I think for a long time, my idea of success was kind of wrapped up in a warped way as well, because I'm like, until I have this big house, big this, big that, I'm not successful. And I was like, that's not true. I think I reached one day and I was like, are you happy doing what you're doing? Are you waking up every day heading toward what you're doing something toward what you want to do? And once I was at peace with that, I was like, I'm good. Even if I never become, the Black Oprah as people see me, because that's what it is. I have people like you who's been following me for 10 years. So they have a vision of where they think I should be, right? Because they see the hustle, they see the struggle. And I'm not a boastful person, so I'm not even sharing everything I do. But even if I don't, I still haven't reached the ultimate or whatever. But you also feel like you're disappointing those people, because you're like, oh my God, they see me. Because sometimes people will send you stuff, oh, I can't wait for you to be whatever. And that's their way of saying, oh yeah, we'll still back over you.
Right? It's like, well, what's wrong with where I'm at now?
But, so if you're not a person who's very centered and anchored in terms of what your goals are, what your mission is, those things can definitely get in your head, So I had to learn to process that and just be like, okay, people may have this vision for you, and you may even have the same vision for yourself, but it's not really the destination. It really is the journey. And I think once I realized the journey really is the success, I'm like, I'd be at peace. I used to be in turmoil in my 20s because I felt like there was still so much to be done. I hadn't done this, I hadn't done that. There's still so much to do. But then I'm like, but you're waking up every day and grinding and doing what you need to do, so you're good. And I think that's also going back to the mental health. And I think that's also why now in my 40s, I'm a little bit more at peace with not grinding as much. I grind because don't let nobody tell you you're not going to grind. Entrepreneurship is always going to be a grind, but you also have to, the balance is not a 50-50 balance. The balance is making a decision. You know what? This week, it's okay. This is just going to have to wait. And I do that more. Like, I didn't do that in my 20s. Like, I never took a vacation because what if I get a job doing that week when I was gone? Now I'm like, oh, well, I missed that job. But first of all, I don't even have to sometimes. But if I do, it's okay, you know, because you have to live. Also, that scarcity mindset can sometimes be part of why you're not getting further. Because if you're thinking like you missed that job, then if that's problematic, that's because you don't think there's another job at the other end. And now I'm of the mindset like, oh, okay, I missed this opportunity, but I'm sure there'll be something else. So I'm not going to be scared like somebody called me for a show appearance and I was away once and they called me for a TV show. I'm like, no. Or they're like, oh, are you going to cancel your trip? I'm like, no, there'll be others, you know? Like, so that's part of my mental health now. That's part of my process now is to say it's okay. If it doesn't work out, I don't beat myself up anymore in terms of thinking like this was my one chance. And before that used to be it. It's like, this is my one chance. If it doesn't happen, it's over. So I had to get out of that mindset.
How do you confront imposter syndrome? Does that come up for you?
Oh, of course, always. You know, ever since I was a kid, like, I'd have teachers raving, like, oh my God, Nadege is so great. Or when I had my first job, everything, they're like, oh my gosh. I'm like, what are they talking about? But I also feel like imposter syndrome exists because, especially among Black people, we are so phenomenal. Like, we are phenomenal, but it's so commonplace for us. Because especially I will speak for myself as a Haitian woman, we are brought up to be excellent.
Yep.
Like, I went to a school, my high school, anybody who's in New York knows Brooklyn Tech. You have to take a specialized test. You're like, my whole path has always been like, oh, it's you're smart. But to me, it was like, oh, it's normal because this is what everybody I was on the same path with was doing.
Right.
So I focused on that, not the fact like there were thousands of other people who didn't get into these schools, who didn't do what I was doing. So I remember I was at Brooklyn Tech, and then the school has my graduating class had 1,200 people. I was number 20, top 2%.
Wow.
Right? And I remember telling my dad, and he's like, oh, like what do the 19 people have you don't have? And I was like, you know what? I wasn't upset because I'm like, what do they have? Like, it didn't make me jealous and it didn't make me upset. I know some people, they said these things hurt them when they're growing up, but what it really made me think growing up was kind of like, it's true. These are humans. If they're able to do it, maybe there's something I could be doing more. Maybe there's something they know, or maybe they really are just smarter than me. And that was also okay. So I broke it down into its different parts. Like, what are the possibilities of these 19 people? Maybe I'm not studying hard enough, in which case that's something I can change. I can work on that. Maybe Ellen is just a super genius and I can't keep up with that. That's also okay. So once you really start breaking things down, these things don't take a toll on you anymore. But I also felt like imposter syndrome happened because that was your norm. You were supposed to be top 20. You're supposed to be valedictorian. You're supposed to go to an Ivy League. Like, to me, we do those things. We go to school. We graduate. We succeed. We take care of families. We do those things. So being great becomes commonplace. So we don't value when we are being excellent.
Yeah.
Other people are noticing it and they're like, oh my God, you're so phenomenal. And you're like, oh.
But I didn't finish that one.
So that's your focus. And I have to say that for a long time. That's how I operate. I don't focus on like what happened good. Like at the end of all my events, we do evaluations. I'm like, great job, everyone. So what can we change for next event? You know, like I'm already on to the next one. Like I took that time. So I think that's why imposter syndrome exists among our communities, perhaps even more so than some others, because excellence is pushed into us. So I had to also, to get away from that, I'm like, well, I deserve, if I'm here, it's because I deserve, because everything else you've done has proven it. So there's no reason to feel like you don't belong. And then when you look at other people, and that's the other thing I started like looking, I'm like, oh, most people are not that great anyways, a lot outside, right? You're in those rooms.
I'm doing pretty good.
You're pretty good because you're focused on you and, like you said, the one thing you didn't do. But when you sit down and really look at what other people are doing, some of them with these big job titles, and I think Obama said it the other day in an interview. He was like, when you step into some of these rooms and you're really listening to some of these people, you realize they're not that phenomenal. And then you realize all your lack is kind of like, oh, that's it when you're, so you start like, you have to kind of like really analyze a little bit more and be like, okay, yeah, maybe I am all that a little.
I'm all right.
I still forgot that one thing, but the other things I did, they're good. They're good.
So if you had to cook a meal that represents you in 3 dishes, what would they be?
Ooh, a meal. I mean, it's my meal because represents me in the thing. It's my favorite meal, but it's diri sauce pois, diri blanc, sauce pois blanc, or sauce pois noir, whichever sauce pois, and legume. So I call this my meal because my dad is the meal that he would cook for me, because whenever I got Haitian parents, they're never gonna say I'm sorry. So after living bon bateau, a good little beating when I was younger, that was the meal he would cook. And when I tell you that man can cook, so it was always phenomenal. But I also think it's a dish I would always like when I would cook for others too, and it represents me in the fact like it's care. And I think that's what I try to lead by, is care and love. So I think if I make that meal for you, you would know that it's care, because the time it takes to make that legume and the sauce pois, and it's still very done in a very traditional way. I think it's like, that I care. And that's what I try to lead by, love and care.
I love that. If you could give 3 people, living or dead, their dream dinner party, who would they be and what would you serve?
Oh, wow. I mean, they're all there at the same time?
I mean, yeah, you can make it one event.
Party, yes, one event. I mean, Maya Angelou, I always tell people that woman influenced me. She was probably the mother that I had when I was growing up, because I read all her books from the time I was 10 years old. So I was always a very adult reader. So I felt a lot of who I am is based off of her, because she had a very strong sense of self, even if not in her youth, but me finding her in my youth, and she was already an adult and processing that, helped me a lot in terms of being okay with who I am as a person. I love Barack because he's fine.
Right.
And he's smart. And I'm going to invite my girl Michelle too.
Okay.
And I just love who they are and what they represent. And there's a lot of others. I mean, I would invite Toussaint too, so I'd sneak him in there. So 4 people. I need Toussaint.
Okay.
I love Toussaint because I really feel like this man was a brilliant strategist. That sometimes us as a people, because we're the coupe-tête boule-kai, and I know we love this Saline because he was a little bit tougher. But I feel like Toussaint, being an analytical person, I think he was that person too, and he understood the chaos that Haiti was in and would fall into that we're living in today. And I think he foresaw that, and I think that's why he was a little bit more diplomatic. And when I would cook them, I would basically cook them a beautiful fusion. I would make it a cocktail reception of pas hors d'oeuvres, and I would probably do my own take on Haitian food, like my soup joumou bisque as like a soup joumou shooter for them to have. Okay. I would probably do like a mai moulin arancini ball,
come to your house.
Or maybe like a a la sauce sushi roll or something.
Wow.
Things that would basically create a menu that highlights Haiti, but at the same time connect them with things they may know in other spaces.
That's awesome. What's one lesson from your journey that you wish someone had told you when you first started?
You're gonna be all right. Like I said, I think it's, we spend a lot of the beginning part of the journey worried, right? Mm-hmm. Worried that it's not gonna be okay, So I do think no matter what, no matter who, whatever it ends up going, you're gonna be all right. And I think had I known that, I think I would have had a lot less sleepless nights, in my 20s. Like a lot of people, they'll tell you, I think it's, my friends will be like, listen, they're going to worry about you because, it's like, it felt like I was always working. And as much as it may feel that way now, I'm not. Like you said, I haven't left my house since Wednesday. It never would have happened, I'm working, but I'm working in such a lighter fashion. Like when my friends come now to visit me, even if they're attending my events, I'm always like, oh, you guys are fine. I got staff now, so.
Right? Nice.
So it was a lot of stress, so I think it was a lot of worry. So I wish somebody would be like, you know what, you're going to figure it out. It's going to all work out. Don't stress yourself. And then, like I said, those blows of those nays or those failures wouldn't have hit so hard, because they do kind of like knock you down longer than they should. And I think if you know that it works out at the end, you would be like, okay, because that's what I do now. And I'm like, damn, man, 240 kriye, you cry for a good 2 seconds. And then I'm like, okay, next. Because it still happen on the daily, you're working on stuff. I'm opening a space and another restaurant, and we've been paying rent for 7 months. Back in the days, I was like, oh my God, it's all happening. Now I'm still like, oh my God, but it's gonna happen.
That's awesome.
So less stress.
Okay. So what's next for you?
Ooh. Rest, hopefully. I love all the things that I do. So my goal is to grow Banan, the restaurant. I want that to eventually franchise and be in other states all over, hopefully in the Midwest. I want to bring my spice line to, and I'm putting it out there, Whole Foods or some major, retailer.
Manifesting.
And then of course I want to take my love of food and travel and find a way to like blend the two and monetize that. Because for me, monetizing is just natural. So I just want to be able to monetize all my passions. So hopefully I could merge that food and travel into something bigger.
I love that. My very last question for you is, on a scale of 1 to 10, how happy are you right now? And
wow, it's a 10. It's a 10. It's a 10. Because again, I think being at peace with self, being at peace with things going right, with things going wrong too, I used to think, like I said before, that everything had to be perfect, and it doesn't. So the 10 is not because everything is great. I still would love clearer skin, I still would, love my bank account to be fatter. I still would love to not have to worry about money in any capacity. I wish Haiti was better, there's so many things that I still want, but I'm still genuinely happy because, like I said, I wake up every day living a very intentional life. And I think that is such a privilege, that I get to live this life. I get to impact in little and big ways. Like, to me, that's more than I could have ever dreamed of.
That's amazing. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. I am just in awe of everything that you do and who you are as a person. I can't wait to just keep seeing what you do next, because I feel like it never stops. Every time I look you up something new, I'm like, wait, I didn't know she did that.
Like I said, some people have alcohol or games or gambling. I'm addicted to entrepreneurship and business.
That's not a bad addiction.
So thank you so much, Joe, for having me. And
thank you for being
hopefully
here.
Your audience enjoyed the conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you. This has been another episode of Unapologetically Anxious Me, Confessions of a Haitian Girl, with the amazing Nadege Fleurimond. You guys make sure you go follow her and buy her book, Haiti Uncovered. I am just really, really just so proud of who you are and so proud to share culture with you. Don't be a stranger. Come back anytime. Thank you.
Yes, and visit us in New York and come eat.
Yes.
Good day. Thank you, love.
Bye.
Bye.